Hey guys, ZCrazyG here, back with another Crash Bandicoot video. Now, Crash Bandicoot 4 has been out for several months now. We've all been able to experience it inside and out, and have formed our opinions on it. And we are now looking towards what we could see for the next mainline installment, should there be one. And of course, with differing opinions, we're all gonna have different things we'd like to see changed or brought over from Crash 4, and also new elements we'd like to see, and I am no exception. So that's what I want to do in today's video, go over things I'd like to see in a potential Crash Bandicoot 5. Of course, these are just my thoughts, and I'd love to see what you guys would like from another Crash Bandicoot game as well, so do share them in the comments below. So anyway, first off, let's talk about things I want to see brought over from Crash 4. Firstly, the level design. I love Crash 4's levels, and their design was some of the best and most ambitious we have seen from the series thus far. From the more basic and standard layouts to the most intricate and involved stages. They did such a good job from a design point of view. I really want to see this creativity get pushed even further. Secondly, keep the art style. I know people still go on about this, but I love the visual style of Crash 4. The scope, scale, and detail is incredible, and the amount of character and personality conveyed through the character designs and the art style is wonderful. And finally, keep the control and movement style. It's slick as hell, fluid and responsive. It works brilliantly. Just keep it, okay? Now moving on to things I want changed from Crash 4 or just gone completely. Mainly just some of the more annoying aspects, like toning down the hidden boxes, and maybe some more variety within the boss fights. Also, don't have such bullshit completion criteria, but I don't think that needs to be said. And a potentially controversial one, but rework the inverted mode so that they are optional filters for levels rather than their own separate levels with their own completion criteria. Now, one thing I am very unsure as to whether I'd like them to return or not are the quantum masks. They were a key part of Crash 4's mechanics and design, being implemented into nearly every other aspect as well. They were such a big part of that game, so I find myself in the position of wondering whether or not they should be brought back. On the one hand, yeah, their abilities were really innovative and allowed for so much creativity in the platforming design. On the other hand, they almost feel like they were what made Crash 4 unique, and I don't really want to take that unique quality away from the game. They are what gives the game's platforming its own unique style to the original trilogy, and I feel like if they were to just use them again, it wouldn't feel as fresh or enjoyable. It would just more so feel rehashed, to me at least. So what do we do instead? Well, that leads me nicely into the direction that I personally would love to see a potential Crash 5 go. In Crash 4, we saw a return to the linear level-by-level map style of Crash 1, and it was cool and it worked perfectly. Though for Crash 5, I think it would be nice to return to the classic warp room style as seen in Crash 2 and 3. And in doing so, it can still do the world by world thing that Crash 4 did by having each warp room based on a world theme and having all the levels of that theme within that one warp room. This would then also mean a boss fight in each warp room, and ergo more boss fights, which I'm sure many would want as well. And with more boss fights, that also means we would see more Crash villains, especially since so many of these secondary villains were absent from 4, like Tiny Tiger, Pinstripe, Ripperoo, the Komodo brothers. It would be nice to see most of them come back and with some great boss fights. And with this return to format, I would like to see, in lieu of the quantum masks, the permanent power-ups return from defeating bosses. Only this time with more bosses give us not only more abilities, but mainly new abilities that affect movement and platforming in different ways that we have not seen before. And while we're talking about bosses, I want to touch upon some villains and story elements that I'd like to see. Now, this might be a bit contentious, but for once, I think it would be interesting to maybe not feature Cortex as a main villain or even a prominent character. Now, I know it's Dr. Neo Cortex. He is a staple of the series. He's the main villain and we all love him. Now, true, in Crash 4, we did kind of get a taster of Cortex not being the main villain for a bit with Entropy taking command. And yeah, along with Uka Uka, we do kind of expect a return due to the completion ending of Crash 4. But honestly, I feel like taking him away from the spotlight just for once would give opportunity for another character to shine and by extension give us a more unique dynamic. So if not Cortex or even Uka Uka, who would I then like to see as the central villain instead? Well, personally, I would love to see Dr. Entrance finally get the opportunity. I feel the GBA game Entrance, despite being themed entirely around him, still didn't really do his character that much justice. Especially considering his really cool abilities with mind control and hypnosis, I just think there's so much more untapped potential there. And with Crash 4's writing style, it would be great to give him more depth and personality. On a side note, I would also be kind of open to the idea of them potentially having another go at Crunch and Nina Cortex, just as long as they were done right and fully realised these characters' potential. I mean, in terms of the story itself, with Crash 4 having wrapped up from Crash 3 fairly well, it now gives us a completely new open direction for us to take these games. I loved Crash 4, despite it being somewhat flawed in certain elements. But if anything, that just means Toys for Bob can learn from these mistakes to ensure that the next game is as good as it can be. And hey, all that I've discussed here are simply just my dumb ideas for what I think would be cool to see. And of course, it's all subjective, and I'm sure we all have different wishes and expectations for a potential Crash 5. So again, I do encourage you all to share what you would like to see in the next Crash game in the comments below. And with that, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Honestly, it does mean so much. Feel free to like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.